Hey, what's up, guys? This is the second video covering Jake Paul, Ben Askren, and in the first one, I made the case for Ben Askren. In this video, I'm going to be making the case for Jake Paul and why you should bet your money on Jake. So definitely check out both of the videos on this channel. I give sports betting advice. We talk about different sports betting strategies, and then I give out a lot of free picks. My goal, of course, is to bring daily free picks to you. And looking around at some of the other sports betting channels, specifically, I was just texting Coach over at Sports Gambling Daily. Man, he's bringing it with the free plays. Some of these guys are starting to do free plays in every single game on the slate. So I don't know if I can do that, but I should at least be able to bring one free play a day. But we'll see, man. I really want to grow the channel, so if you're new here, please consider pressing the subscribe button. But look, I've watched all of Jake Paul's boxing matches, only 3 of them, but I've followed the Paul brothers now for years, and I'm not saying that to brag. It doesn't make me a better person than anybody else, but it is valuable in this case where we're thinking about betting on this fight with Jake Paul and Ben Askren, because I'm someone who's followed the whole process. And I'm seeing so many people, and I don't blame them, I see where they're coming from, but they are fight analysts, boxing analysts, or just combat sport analysts that have YouTube channels and have podcasts and have radio shows, and they are 100% dead set that Ben Askren's going to win this fight. And they don't even know anything about Jake Paul's training over the last 3 years. They don't even know about Jake Paul's 3 boxing matches. They haven't even watched the full boxing matches of all 3, which the last 2 ended extremely quick. Jake Paul was dominant over far lesser opponents than Ben Askren, but they haven't followed any of that, and I get where they're coming from because they can't come out and say, hey, I think Jake Paul is going to win this fight, because say they have to think about the 2 possibilities, right? Like, say Chael Sonnen comes out, or Daniel Cormier comes out, or one of these other fighters that makes content comes out on YouTube and takes Jake Paul as their prediction. If Ben Askren comes out and just beats him up, they're going to lose a lot of credibility there. So they have to they're almost forced, they're biased to say Ben Askren's going to win this fight. And then if they're wrong, they can say, wow, congrats to Jake Paul, I didn't see that one coming. And they just play it off that way. But the reality is, from somebody who's unbiased, who's watched all of Ben Askren's fights and watched all 3 of Jake Paul's boxing matches and has seen Jake Paul go from full-time YouTube, where he's putting like hours, like 12-hour days into the YouTube channel, and then takes that and completely stops making these high-quality YouTube vlogs. Now he's putting his 12 hours into boxing, and somebody who's aware of that, I have a much more unbiased opinion. Now, I want to be clear, Jake Paul is very annoying and very frustrating to watch, and he's completely delusional about where he thinks his skills are. Jake Paul is not as good as he thinks he is at boxing, and he's absolutely horrible at trash talking, which we saw at the press conference. A lot of people have seen that press conference, and Jake Paul went from being a massive favorite to a very small favorite. It's almost like a pick-em now at a lot of the sports books. And just because he got dominated in that doesn't mean that there's not still a massive gap between his boxing ability and Ben Askren's boxing ability. This isn't just some average dude who's gone out and trained all day every day for 3 years in boxing. Like, I could go out and train all day every day for 3 years. Who knows? I'd find a random boxing gem. It wouldn't be the same as what Jake's doing. He literally has moved where he lives so that he can focus on training all day every day with his team and with his coaches. He also has tens of millions of dollars. The Paul brothers basically have an infinite amount of money to invest into this, knowing that they're going to see the money come back with the pay-per-view buys. They're going to break pay-per-view records with this boxing match, and assuming Jake Paul can win this boxing match, he's going to be able to do it over and over again. If Jake Paul beats Ben Askren, there's no reason to think Jake Paul's not going to beat Dylan Danis, and then he just picks these random celebrities, these random pro athletes that he's more experienced and better at boxing at, and he just has them try to beat him, and he just makes $50 million over and over again, which is a ton of money compared to what even pro boxers are making and pro UFC guys are making. So they invested all this money in not just training all day every day for 3 years straight, but training all day every day Logan's trains about 4 hours a day, and I think it's like 6 days a week. He does 4 hour days. Jake, I believe, trains 2 days, and I think he's putting in more than 4 hours a day. And Jake is completely focused on this. Not only that, but they're training with the top boxers, the top boxing coaches that money can buy, and then they're sparring with professional boxers. And I saw in an interview, and a lot of this stuff is repetitive, but I've watched all the interviews. I've seen an interview where Ben Askren, he said it a few times, where he's training, I think it was even on his own vlog, he said it in one of his recent vlogs, which aren't up on YouTube, they're on some other site. You have to go through the link in his Instagram bio to find them. But I've watched those too, and Ben told one of his training partners who's a pro boxer, hey, look, man, I'm not going in there to fight you, I'm going in to fight Jake Paul. So like maybe 75% with me because I'm not going to fight someone of your caliber. Which is true. Jake Paul's not as good as a pro boxer, but the way these Paul brothers are training is they're getting in there with pro boxers and they're saying, hey, try to knock me out, go 100% on me, because if I'm going 100% in training with pro boxers, when I get into the ring with a Ben Askren, it's not going to be the hardest thing that I've ever done. Now, the difference between training and an actual fight are two separate things, and that's one advantage that Ben Askren has. He has more experience in the ring or in the cage than Jake does. But Jake, his training style is, he's training all day, every day with the best coaches. Literally, he spent preparing for a second fight. He moved and lived in the gym in Big Bear, and he trained at Big Bear, completely focused on his fight and nothing else, and that was for months. And now he's moved to Miami to train full-time there, and when he trains, he goes hard against pros and doesn't hold back. So I think there's a massive gap in the boxing, and I think this is going to wake a lot of people up. I think this will be your last chance to take Jake Paul at even odds, before he's just a massive favorite next time he goes into the ring. And the way it's shaping up, I think Dylan Dennis is next. KSI, I think, is going to completely dodge Jake. And I just want to be really clear, this is no disrespect to Ben. I think Ben is more of an alpha male. He's a savage compared to Jake. I don't think Jake is that mentally tough, whereas Ben obviously is extremely mentally tough. I think Ben's got better endurance. I recognize that Ben has more experience fighting, and he's going to be more mature with his game plan and the execution of his game plan. He was dominated that press conference, but a lot of people aren't factoring in, just because he dominated the press conference, that's definitely a good sign if you're backing Ben, but it doesn't account for the gap in boxing skill and boxing ability. And when you take away, like, cage fighting in the UFC, there's so many elements to that. When you take away all of the elements except for stand-up boxing, stand up and punch, standing up and punching, Ben hasn't done that at all. Ben's whole game plan was to put his head in the dude's crotch, grab one of their legs, take it to the ground immediately. That's how he got kneed in the head by Masvidal. And while I'm on that, I think the way Masvidal knocked Ben out makes him more prone to being knocked out again, just because that knockout was so vicious. Now, it's going to be very hard to knock Ben out because, he has gone in there with, like, Robbie Lawler and not got knocked out and stuff like that. But I think when he's forced to stand up, there's no way to avoid exchanging punches. We saw how vicious the knockout was on Nate Robinson in Jake's last fight. I think Jake's going to get the knockout in the first couple of rounds. And even if he doesn't, I think Jake will do enough to win the first 5 rounds of the fight and win by decision, worst case, if he has to. But I think Jake training with the best boxing coaches in the world for 3 years straight, being a young, fit athlete, and then training hard against other pro boxers and having the pro boxers push him in practice, I think Jake has experience boxing, not in an event, but in practice, against far better boxers than Ben Askren, and Ben Askren has not boxed far better boxers than Jake Paul, or I should say when he has, he's asked them to tone it down. So he has trained with pro boxers a little bit for 3 months going into the fight, but when he has, he's asked them to tone it down. So that's why I think Jake Paul is going to win. If you haven't seen my reasoning for why I think Ben Askren's going to win, go check out that video. I made 2 separate videos on it. I've talked to people that are 100% sure both ways. Let me know in the comments what you think, how you see the boxing match going, and then what you think is going to happen after the boxing match. If Ben Askren wins, does he fight Logan? If Jake wins, what happens? Does he call out Colby Covington? I know Jake and Masvidal are so close. Colby's been calling Jake out in a couple of his interviews this week, so that's fun to see. But it's super entertaining stuff. Can't wait to see the fight. If you want to purchase my premium play, go to my website, sbenation.com. It's $20. It gets you my full write-up on who I truly think is going to win and how I truly think they're going to win. And I'm excited about this bet. This is going to be one of my biggest bets of the year. Also, if you're new to the YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button. I'm doing this all with a torn Achilles for you guys, so excuse the camera quality. Although my quality is never that insane, ever. But thank you guys for watching to the end, and I'll see you guys in the next video.